Well, hello, students. It's week 12 in adult development, and I'm going to go over chapter 8, which is on personality and coping for this week. Now, last week, remember, um, I gave the details on your interview assignment, and I want to make sure that everyone's on the same page in terms of getting that organized and done. And so if you need a meeting, after you do your interviews or even before you do your interviews and you have questions, just let me know, email me, and then we can speak over Zoom or, the phone or by email. Okay, so make sure that, if you have any questions at all, or you need help on that interview assignment, which is worth quite a few points, I want to make sure that you contact me and we can go over whatever it is that you're not sure about. Okay. All right. So I promised you that today we're going to talk about personality and coping. Okay. Now we have a class here at ENMU called Theories of Personality, and it's a really nice, in-depth kind of a psychology course that looks at personality theories that people have come up with, and how personality sort of stays stable over the lifespan, just like your chapter 8 book chapter talks about. And it's a really interesting course. So I hope that all you psychology majors or even non-majors who are interested in this topic will, think about taking that course, either as a major requirement or as an upper division elective that you can take if you need hours. Okay, so that's a really good course. Anyway, personality and coping. Let's dive into that. You guys take some good notes. The concepts that I present in this lecture are going to be on the quiz, and also the important discussion item will be around one of the concepts that I present in this lecture. Okay. All right. So when we think about personality, if a person has a good personality, or if a person is shy, or outgoing, or conscientious, or anything else, we can think of certain aspects of personality that people have that we see. Okay. And so personality theorists have said that personality is an enduring pattern of behavior that persists across situations and contexts. Okay. And so if I'm an introvert interpersonally with you, I'm also probably going to be introverted in social situations or on the job, right? Or in any other interactions that I have with people. Okay, an introvert is kind of a shy person, kind of introspective, right? And not outgoing like an extrovert would be. All right. So theorists think these traits that we have in terms of personality persist across all situations and contexts. Okay. That may not be the case, that you think that you are kind of stable across situations, but most theorists believe that we are. Okay. All right. Now, personality is measured with personality inventories. Okay, and there are several that are talked about in the textbook, but one of the nice ones, and it's a really short scale, it's only a 10-item scale, is called the TIPI. Okay, TIPI. I have a link to the TIPI, and I'd like you to go ahead and take out a piece of paper and take this personality inventory. And then I'm going to have you score yourself on the inventory and kind of think about how to interpret your scores. Okay, so you might pause this video, take the TIPI, have your answer sheet ready for the next part. Okay. So go ahead and do that now. All right, now in that paper, you're going to find on page 525 in Appendix A, there is a kind of scoring procedure. All right. How do you score the TIPI, for yourself? All right, the first thing you need to do is look at all the R items, and those are called reverse score items. And those are all the even numbered items on the TIPI. Okay, so number 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, all the even numbers are going to be reversed, the scores that you wrote down on the paper. Okay, so on your answer sheet, what you're going to do, if you answered, say, a 2 on item number 2, we're going to cross out that 2 rating that you put on your score sheet or answer sheet, and then you're going to change it to a 6. Okay. So the way we, do these reverse score items is to look at, how we've got a 1 to 7 scale, right? How do we reverse those numbers? Well, a reverse scored item would be change a 1 to a 7, change a 2 to a 6, change a 3 to a 5, change, you leave 4 alone because that's going to be the same either way. And then if you put a 5, you'll change that to a 3, a 6 changes to a 2, and then a 7 changes to a 1. All right, so for all those even numbered items, you're going to cross out what you put and then put the reverse score in its place on your answer sheet. Okay, so pause the video, do that now. All right, now this TIPI scale, as many personality scales do that are modern, measured the big 5, okay? Extroversion, agreeableness, openness, conscientiousness, and neuroticism or emotional stability, okay? And those have to be scored next on your answer sheet. All right, now items 1 and 6 are your extroversion items, okay? So to get your personal personality score on extroversion, you're going to average your ratings for numbers 1 and 6, your answers, okay? And so how do you get an average? Well, you take the 2 scores that you have on your sheet and divide by 2 for numbers 1 and 6, okay? And then that's going to be your overall extroversion score, okay? All right, so don't forget how to take an average because you'll need to be able to do that for this scoring, okay? All right, next, average your ratings on items 2 and 7 because those are your agreeableness personality ratings, okay? And so, take your first score on number 2, take your second score on number 7, then you divide that by 2 to get an average agreeableness rating, okay? So do that next. Now, on items 3 and 8, we're going to get your conscientiousness personality score. You're going to average those ratings and get your overall conscientiousness rating. Okay? Next, you're going to average your ratings on items 4 and 9, and that gives you your emotional stability or neuroticism score. Okay. And then last, you will average your ratings on items 5 and 10 to get your openness to experience score. All right. So, take your time and get those right and get those 5 averaged scores and look at those, okay? Now, how do we interpret these scores? If you average, or your average number is between 1 and 3 on something like extroversion, that means you're pretty low on that trait. Okay, so if you scored a 2 on average for extroversion, that's a relatively low extroversion average. Okay, if your average is around 4, that means you're kind of moderate on whatever trait you're looking at. Okay? And then if you average between 5 and 7 on any of these personality traits, you're relatively high on that personality trait. All right. Now, this just gives you a rough kind of a guide to gauging your own personality according to the 5-factor model, or the Big Five, um, that's known by the acronym OCEAN. Okay. So O stands for openness, C stands for conscientiousness, E is extroversion, A is agreeableness, and N is neuroticism. Okay, that's the OCEAN personality model. All right, and you can look in your book in the table at the top of one of the pages, and you'll find specific information about each of these 5 personality traits. Okay. All right, I hope I'm not going too fast, but you can pause this video as you think about these things and score your items and things like that. Okay. Now, in your book, very important, they talk about the Baltimore longitudinal study, and this is where Costa and McCrae were able to create this 5-factor model. Okay. And so Costa and McCrae measured personality using their OCEAN model. It was called the NEO-AC in the Baltimore longitudinal study. And so they looked at people's personality over time. And I think the age groups were from 20 to 80, and they looked at them over several years. Okay. And their findings indicated that personality traits stay relatively stable over time, okay, from 20 to 80 years old. That's interesting, isn't it? Okay. Now, the researchers, Costa and McCrae, also assessed how people who scored high on some traits related to measures of their own well-being. Okay. So, what is your well-being score? Well, they looked at personality traits as they related to well-being. Okay. Now, in the book, it gives a lot of information about this, and I want you to read that section thoroughly because that's probably quiz material. Okay. But besides that, it will give you insights into the most recent thought about things like the midlife crisis, which may or may not be a true crisis, and then also about emotion, okay, or affect. All right. Now, also in your book, and these are important little sections that you want to read, are things about coping and adjustment. All right. Some adults are unhappy and dissatisfied, and we know these people, right? We understand the way they behave. They're unhappy, they're dissatisfied with things, while others, other people that we know, are high in life satisfaction and well-being. Okay, so some people are really satisfied with their life and they feel good about themselves. That's kind of what well-being means. How do people who are different as individuals cope with things that come up in life, stressors that happen, like divorce or moving to a different city to work in a different job, right? Or losing family members through, let's say, COVID, okay? Or anything else that kind of is a stressor to them. How do they adjust to new and changing circumstances? All right, this is all kind of tied in to personality. Okay, how well do certain personalities cope and adjust? with stressors. Okay, that's interesting. Now, in that section, they also talk about a social psychology concept called self concept. Okay, that's one of the big areas in social psychology. How do you conceptualize yourself? Okay, so read about that in your book. And then also possible selves. Okay, so if you think about self concept, that's what you've been in the past and what you are right now. But when you think about possible selves, you kind of predict what you're going to be like in the future. Okay, so that's a possible self. Um, are you going to be successful or are you going to fail? Right, and those kind of relate to possible selves. So these are all kind of social psychological concepts. Okay. Now, this last thing in the second bullet point is called the AAI model. It's called the assimilation, accommodation, and immunization model. It's more cognitive in nature. Okay. So read about that in the book and understand it. Assimilation, accommodation, those come from Jean Piaget's theory, right? They kind of loosely tie to that theory. And then what is immunization? You think that an immunization is a shot that you take, right? So you don't get sick with some disease, but in this case, this is a psychological immunization, okay? So read about those three things in the book. All right, there's another thing in the book called personal control. How does personality apply to personal control? Okay, so read about these things that are on this slide by yourself or with a friend, okay, and take good notes. So all the concepts that I presented in this very short lecture um, are important to read about in the book. And then you'll be prepared for the quiz and discussion that will be due on Sunday night by 11:59 p.m. Okay. All right, very good. This is week 12, so get your work done and do your best. Okay, see you next week.